Okay, let's kick things off. Imagine, imagine a craft like single malt Scotch whiskey. So much history, right? Centuries of doing things a certain way, steps you just don't mess with. And then someone comes along and, well, decides to challenge one of the really basic ones.
Yeah, and not just challenge it, but actually change one of the very first foundational parts of the whole process. That's exactly the kind of boundary pushing we're looking at today.
It really is. So our deep dive today is into something pretty unprecedented, especially from a distillery like Ardbeg, known for being, intensely traditional in his own smoky way. We're talking about Ardbeg Smokiverse. And our sources, they really hammer home that what makes this expression so different is something called the high-gravity mash experiment. They actually describe it as something never before seen from Ardbeg or, get this, any other distillery either.
That's a really bold claim. And looking at the details we have, it seems like it all hinges on a pretty significant technical shift right at the beginning. The information you shared also brings in whiskey.dk, which is helpful. They explain the experiment, but also crucially tell us where you might actually find this stuff.
Right. So our mission really is to unpack the how and the what of this Ardbeg. What is this high-gravity mash? How does it change things? What does it actually do to the final whiskey? And then, look at the place that specializes in bringing these unique bottles to people like us. It's sort of the whole journey, isn't it? Innovation at the start, all the way to your glass.
It is, yeah. We'll try to connect that technical tweak to what you actually taste and smell, and then look at the retailers who make that connection happen.
Okay, let's dive into it then. High-gravity mash. It sounds weighty, technical.
It does sound a bit technical, but the core idea, well, it boils down to a fundamental change in mashing, where you mix the malted barley with hot water in the mash tun to get the sugars out.
Right, creating that sugary liquid, the wort, almost like making a very specific kind of grain tea before you add the yeast.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, exactly. And traditionally, there's a pretty standard water-to-grain ratio that distilleries use. The high-gravity mash experiment, well, the name gives it away, really. It messes with that ratio. The idea is to use less water compared to the amount of grain you put in the mash tun.
Less water.
Yeah.
More grain. Okay, hang on. Why? Why do that? What's the point? What does that actually change?
Well, the source explains that using less water, more grain, it results in what they call an exceptionally sugary wort.
Ah, okay. Exceptionally sugar. Got it.
And because it's so much more concentrated, it has a higher gravity. Gravity in this context, it's about the density of the liquid, how much sugar is dissolved in it before fermentation starts. So yeah, higher gravity just means way more sugar packed in there from the get-go.
Ah, right. So you're starting the whole fermentation process with a liquid that's much richer, denser, sweeter than normal.
Precisely. More sugar packed into that initial liquid. And the result of this intensified mashing, according to Ardbeg anyway, is a whiskey that comes out remarkably fruity.
Whoa, remarkably fruity from Ardbeg. That'll raise some eyebrows. They're so famous for that intense peat, the smoke, sometimes almost medicinal notes,
Yeah.
How do they get intense fruitiness but still keep it Ardbeg? Does the source touch on that balance?
Yeah, what's really interesting is how the sources emphasize this. They say the process creates this fruity character while still offering a, let me quote this, unique and bold interpretation of Ardbeg's characteristic style. So it doesn't sound like the peat's gone missing, not at all. It sounds like they've just added this big, unexpected fruity layer that kind of plays with the peat.
Okay, that makes more sense. Adding, not replacing. So starting with this super sugary base, how does that translate into the actual whiskey? What's it, look, smell, taste? What did the source say?
Okay, so the source describes the color first. Brilliant, golden. And it's bottled at 48.3% ABV.
Good strength. Solid. Lets the flavors come through.
Definitely. Then the nose. It's described as an explosion of fruity and ester notes. Esters. Those are the compounds that give off fruity smells during fermentation. Sounds like this high sugar start really ramped them up. And then there's this description, smoked chewing gum.
Smoked chewing gum. Okay, that's a new one on me for whiskey. What does that even mean? Like fruity, juicy fruit with bonfire smoke? Or that's so specific. Does the source elaborate?
It doesn't elaborate much on that specific note, unfortunately, but it's listed alongside aromas of ripening barley, toasted sourdough bread, those kinds of things. And then apparently, if you add a little water, the nose opens up to reveal dense, sweet, and aromatic peat smoke, but it's blending with lightly smoked tropical fruits.
Huh?
So that mix, bright tropical fruit and deep smoke, that sounds like it directly connects back to what they were aiming for with this mash.
Yeah, that really paints a picture. The fruitiness they wanted, but tangled up with that classic Ardbeg smoke. Okay, what about the taste? What happens when you actually sip it?
The taste is described as rich and creamy to start, gives a luxurious mouthfeel right away.
Uh-huh.
But then it shifts. It transitions into sharp, sooty, and spicy notes.
Sharp, city, spicy. Okay, that sounds more like the Ardbeg we know. That punch coming through after the creaminess. Does the source give any sense of, like, the timing? How quick is that shift?
It seems pretty dynamic. The flavors mentioned are things like creosote, anise, and cloves, those classic phenolic, spicy elements. But they're balanced by the sweetness of muscovado sugar, and there are robust wood notes mingling with deep charcoal. It definitely sounds complex. A real back and forth of different sensations hitting you.
So you get that initial richness, maybe from the higher sugar, then bam, classic Ardbeg intensity spice.
Yeah.
Sure, but maybe interacting with those fruit and smoke notes from the nose. Sounds like quite a journey for the palate.
It really does. And the finish, described as almost infinite, leaves a lasting impression of earthy peat moss blending with glowing embers. So it absolutely keeps that signature smoky, long-lasting depth Ardbeg's famous for.
Huh. So even with that really fundamental change right at the start, in the mash, they've somehow kept the peat legacy intact. Integrated the fruitiness, didn't replace the smoke. It's a NAS release, no age statement, matured in classic bourbon casks, which the source says provides a, quote, solid base for the intense and fruity characteristics from the mash.
Exactly. That choice of bourbon casks, it probably lets that unique, fruity character, the one unlocked by the special mash, really shine. It doesn't get overshadowed by, say, sherry cask influence or something more active. The source really positions this as a bold and untraditional whiskey, made for enthusiasts, people who appreciate, the art and innovation in single malt.
Yeah, that makes total sense. This isn't some tiny tweak. It's changing a core traditional step. If you're into whiskey, how it's actually made, this high-gravity mash thing is, well, it's definitely something to notice. Now, something this specific, this innovative, find it might be tricky, right?
Yeah.
Outside specialist places. Where did the source say we should look?
The source points directly to whisky.dk.
Okay, whisky.dk. And this is where good retailers are just so important, getting these special bottles out there. What does the source tell us about them?
Well, according to the info we have, whisky.dk is Denmark's largest whiskey store, both online and physical.
Denmark's largest. Okay, that says something about their scale, their commitment.
It certainly does. They offer a huge selection, an extensive selection of quality spirits. Big focus on whiskey, obviously Scottish, Japanese, Irish, American, even Danish whiskey gets a mention. But they're not just whiskey. They stock other exclusive stuff too, like rum, gin, cognac, tequila.
So a wide range, even though whiskey is clearly the heart of it.
Yeah.
Where's their actual shop, their physical store?
It's in a place called Vestruprud, which is near Kolding. And the source mentions the showroom is substantial, 500 square meters.
Wow, 500 square meters of bottles. That sounds like the kind of place you could happily get lost in for an afternoon. Does the source give a feel for the experience there?
It does, yeah. Describes it as a place where you can explore thousands of bottles. They're highlighted for their expertise and passion. They run tastings, master classes, seems geared towards really enhancing the customer experience, building knowledge.
Tastings and master classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shows they're not just shifting boxes. They're building a community, helping people learn.
Exactly. Visitors can enjoy carefully selected tastings in a cozy atmosphere. The source even calls it a popular spot for both beginners and whiskey enthusiasts. So catering to everyone, from newbies to serious collectors.
Sounds like a proper destination for spirit lovers in Denmark. What's their background? How did they get to be the biggest?
Whisky.dk was started by Ulrik Bertelsen and Henrik Olsen. It actually began as just a small online business back in 2012.
Just 2012. Wow, that's pretty fast growth to become the largest in, just over a decade? Does the source hint at why they've been so successful? Any specific strategy or philosophy?
It connects their success to dedication, mostly. Notes they've grown significantly into a leading whiskey retailer.
Yeah.
And as proof of that fast, sustained growth at entrepreneurship, they've won the Danish Gazelle Prize multiple times.
Oh, the Gazelle Prize.
Yeah.
Winning that multiple times is genuinely impressive. It signals really strong, consistent growth. So you've got Ardbeg pushing boundaries on the production side, doing these really innovative things. And then you have retailers like whisky.dk who've built this incredibly successful operation focused on getting those unique enthusiast spirits out to people. It's a neat picture, innovation meeting passion and distribution.
It is. It shows that whole chain, doesn't it? From the initial idea at the distillery through to the specialist retailer who connects that unique bottle with you, the drinker.
Right. So to kind of wrap this deep dive up?
Well, Ardbeg Smokiverse, it's a really compelling example of challenging the norms in a very traditional craft. It's all about that high-gravity mash experiment, changing that basic water-to-grain ratio in mashing to get this surprisingly fruity character, but somehow keeping that classic Ardbeg smoke.
Yeah, and that innovation, aged in standard bourbon casks, it's clearly aimed at whiskey fans who get excited about seeing boundaries pushed in single malt.
And then Whisky.DT comes into the picture as the kind of dedicated retailer who's essential for bringing these special bottlings to the public. Their Story Small online startup to Denmark's largest, huge showroom, multiple Gazelle prizes, it really underscores the importance of that passionate retail link.
It really makes you think, though, how changing something so fundamental, like the amount of water you use, right, at the start of making whiskey,
Right.
can lead to such a different, distinct result in the end product.
It does, and maybe it leaves you with a question to mull over. What other crafts, other established processes, things we just assume have to be done a certain way with a fixed ratio or ingredient? What surprising results might we get if we challenged one of those basic steps?
Something to think about, definitely. The power of breaking with tradition, even just a little bit.